Hello, everybody, and welcome to Documentation Not Included. I have a bright glare on my glasses, so I do apologize. But it is Thursday, 7 p.m. British, as we declared last week, summertime, although it doesn't always feel that way, and we're live here on twitch.tv/DNI stream. Rock on. It is time for episode 11.0, Freelance Fun, a primer, and I'm Josey. I'm joined by, I'm not going to say awesome and wonderful co-host. I am going to say the co-host with the mostess.
Co-hostess with the mostess. That's
sure. If you wish to be a hostess,
I'm fine with that.
Perfectly fine calling you a hostess.
You can tell who wrote the script this week, can't you?
That's me. But yes, I am joined by my favorite bearded companion when it comes to these podcasts, Chris. And again, he has pronounced it Seabach.
Oh, lovely. Wonderfully phonetically correct. Excellent. So yes, indeed you are, Josey. Thank you very much. Hello, and hello to everybody in Twitch chat. We've already got a little bit of chat going on. Please do get involved with the show as we are streaming live. Your comments are always welcome, and if you're lucky, we will read one or two of them out. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we have no guest today. Nobody wants to be our friend, and so we're going to be focusing on what Josey and I know best, which is freelancing, self-employment, contracting, whatever you want to call it, basically working on your own.
Yes. However, before we get that going, it is icebreaker time, as always. This is a question we ask before every show that has nothing to do with the subject matter or even sometimes development. It's just to ease things up, let you guys know us a little better. And obviously neither of us need an excuse to chat, although sometimes it helps. But this week, I'm not doing the icebreaker. Chris basically contacted me and he's like, please, Josey, please let me do the icebreaker this week. I hummed and I hawed.
Don't big it up. It's just I just thought I'll change it up and I'll do it for once. My icebreaker is, yes. What would you do with £1 million?
I know the answer to this already.
Hopefully, most people have thought about it.
Well, it's a kind of sort of like, what would you do for a Klondike bar kind of thing? Very old school US thing. For me, it's pretty simple. Mortgage will be completely paid off. Any loans, credit cards, things that I have or my family has would be paid off. And when I say mortgage, I don't mean just mine. I mean my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my sister, my younger sister. I would hit the family and I would just get all of the mortgages paid off. If I was lucky enough to have money after that, I would make certain debts were covered. I would then stop and ask, what is it you really want to do with your life? Do you need to go back to school to learn it? Or do you want to do a trade? Do you need an apprenticeship? And then I would actually go out and get people to do pull together apprenticeships or help people get on to paths where they're happy and they actually want to wake up in the morning.
So you'd create a business that would help people get on the right path?
I wouldn't even create a business. I would almost turn it into grants. I mean, obviously, while I'm trying to decide how I want to do this is money sitting inside a bank account earning gratuitous interest, which will allow me to then invest it in further projects that I would have. I have a dream, Chris. I've had a dream since I was 16. Where I could get all of my friends together on one island in our own sort of rule of law and all the stuff that goes with it, and just let people do what they want to do. What is it that gets them out of bed in the morning? I hear so many of my friends frustrated with their work. I hear so many friends sad because they have a student debt they have to pay. One of my friends just recently paid off her student debt, and I spoke to her 2 months after it finished, and she said, I don't have to pay the student loan anymore, but I still don't have money to cover gas because price rates and all the other stuff.
Well, student loans, you don't know about the money, though, really, because it comes out of your wages, doesn't it?
It's different in the United States. Yeah. It's very different in the United States. I mean, there's a guy, did you see this? Went viral on YouTube. A guy gave a commencement ceremony, and in that ceremony speech, He said, everybody here who's graduating this year, this is my year. All of your student loans are going to be paid by me.
Okay.
This guy, he's a professional. In fact, interestingly enough, he apparently is on the board where my husband works. But this guy went viral with this. He said, I challenge all of you other people out there, you successful people with the money. Which class is yours? This is my class. And I want to be able to do things like that for people. But in the United States, it's a nightmare. It's anyway. But yes, what would you do with $1 million?
That's just, I was really enjoying listening to what you were doing. But you can tell that with what I'm going to say as well, you can tell that we're over 30, can't you? Pay off the mortgage, pay off all the debts. I wouldn't pay my mortgage off. I wouldn't. I've been told by my financial advisor, do not pay your mortgage off, specifically. I mean, that's because I don't have £1 million, probably, but it's, anyway, I would buy a big house in the countryside and I would retire to it. Simple as that. None of this altruism, none of this giving money away or helping other people. Just disappear, and I would go and spend time with nature and spend time with. I love my computers. Don't get me wrong. I love my tech and I love my things, but I'm not a particularly materialistic person, if you know what I mean. I'd much prefer being up a mountain, not Everest, especially not with all the recent headlines. But I like going out and doing things. I'd buy a little home, what do they call them? Farms, a little small holding or something, and look after animals and just be with nature.
Are you the kind of person who would run around dressed in trees, or would you actually have Amazon deliver to you
dressed in trees?
Yeah, would you be like Tarzan?
Right, I see what you mean.
Are you more of a naturalist?
Well, yes and no. I'm not. I mean, I'm not, because you can't really be this day and age. But I do prefer not having too many clothes on. Put it that way. But
and this actually segues brilliantly into our show about working from home.
Well. Yes. Anyway, so I would probably. I'd love to live off the land. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me camping everywhere, and proper rough camping. I say proper rough. We'd have a boat and we'd go out and we'd fish and we'd get lobsters and we'd get fish and crabs and eels and things like that, and that's what we'd live off. And then we'd gather firewood from the shore. To make the fire, so everything would be as self-sufficient as we could, basically because my dad's like steptoe and he is extremely cheap and doesn't like spending any money on anything. But I learned a lot doing that, and I really appreciate nature for that. The problem is my life is now half my wife's life, and my wife isn't a particularly outdoorsy person, so I'm
See, having lived in the UK now for as long as I have, I want to take the Yorkshireman route and be like, you had a boat? I didn't have a boat when I went out to nature. I had to walk through mud. And I used to love camping. Oh my God, I love it.
I used to. I don't like it that much these days. I
haven't done it in a while.
But I enjoy the survival aspect, if you know what I mean. That's what I play computer games. I play survival games because I kind of really want to be in that situation.
Do me a favor, when the zombie apocalypse happens, make certain you make your way up to me, or actually sort of over to me, and pick me up.
I've already got a load of people I'm picking up on the way, so we'll imagine the more people you've got, the less chance of survival you've got as well, you see. Anyway, let's move on.
We'll go to the pub.
So on to this week's subject, freelancing fun. As regular listeners will know, both Josey and I are freelancers. I'm a contractor. I do more contract and consultancy work. Josey does more kind of service-based. I mean, I'll let Josey explain what she does a bit better, but more service-based stuff, freelancing more than anything. And we do cover a lot of different disciplines and different ways of working as well. Contracting and freelancing isn't just about working on your own. It's about working with your clients and retaining clients, and that's where we specialize. And every single podcast that we've done, we end up getting told off by people who are usually permanent members of staff, because they're not in our world at all. They don't understand that we are. So we thought we'd do an actual episode, an entire a series of episodes, in fact, about it. We put together a document last night, didn't we, Josey? Oh, today, actually. It was earlier on today.
It was this morning. It's like 7 a.m. this morning.
Something ridiculous. Anyway, and I don't know why. We created the documents we do normally for the show, and we just started rolling. And honestly, this is like 2 pages long now of bullet points about things that we can talk about and things we can go into real depth about. And we could probably get guests on to talk about things in more specific detail as well. Yep. So I've went off script quite a bit there, but this is the thing.
We knew that this was going to happen because, Chris and I, we like to talk. And I mean, is that obvious? Please let me know if that's obvious. Ethical, however, points out, while you're on this topic, kind of related, kind of not, do you feel that having to take exams to prove your knowledge is viable these days with the power of the internet and the ability to obtain information? I'm going to answer that in just 1 second. I'm going to finish our script and actually get to the point where we can get into a conversation because we're trying to be professional. Maybe we'll have sponsors, but right now we've lost all our sponsors that we had. Anyway, version 11 of Documentation Not Included is going to focus on what providing a personal service and being self-employed in the IT world is all about. However, I will state a lot of the things we're going to talk about are actually going to cover all kinds of self-employment.
Running a business, yeah.
In some cases, but we'll also, because we're tech, gonna be tech related as well. And we have a hell of a lot of topics to cover. So we're going to try to summarize them, give you a preview of what's coming up, answer questions that you guys have for us. Obviously, we're gonna have to talk about the Castle de Dev and the moat that you have, Chris, apparently, according to Ethical. I want a moat. I want a moat, and I want dragons in the moat. I also want capybaras because in my brain I can picture capybaras dressed in like knight outfits riding dragons off to do battle. Don't ask.
A small holding with just capybaras I'd be very happy with. Oh, there you go. That's my £1,000,000.
I love capybaras.
I love them. Well, we've got guinea pigs, haven't we? So they're the bigger cousins.
You do. But yes, to answer your question, Ethical, I'm going to let Chris tackle this one first. So, do you feel that having to take exams to prove your knowledge is viable these days with the power of the internet and the ability to obtain information?
For me, absolutely not. I don't even have an A level. I have managed to be fairly successful.
Translate that to UK or to US. A level is
high school diploma. Is that a high level? Maybe?
I guess it's roughly like that, yeah.
I mean, it's not quite the same. We get A levels at college, whereas you call college what we call university, whereas that's where we get degrees.
It's really... How old?
But either way, it's 16, 17? No, yeah, probably about that. It's that long ago. I can't remember.
About what we call our junior, senior years of high school.
Okay, so what happened with my life? I didn't actually get any A levels. I studied them. I failed maths and physics miserably because I just didn't apply myself whatsoever. And I ended up taking AS level geography and AS level theology. Don't know why. Theology was the most interesting subject I've ever taken in my life. I loved it. I'm not a religious person, but it was extremely interesting learning about lots and lots of different religions. Anyway, beside the point. I don't feel like I have to keep up to date because technology moves so quickly. There's new technology out every single day. Every single week there's a new stack that I need to learn. Just this week alone I've learned so much about the job I'm doing at the moment. I've managed to land a solution architect role recently just from having a little bit of charisma in an interview, just by being honest and open with people and saying that I am a developer, I come from a development background, I implement software systems, but I also design software systems. And I just happened to be the right person they were looking for at the time. You know, I don't lie in interviews. I tell people what I can and can't do. But that sometimes gets you somewhere, and other times it doesn't.
Yeah, get you shot in the foot. Yeah,
a lot of the time, because the people are looking for you to give stock answers, academic answers sometimes. I've had people who've wanted very specific knowledge from a very specific degree before, and I said, look, I haven't been to university, and they look at me like I'm mad. But that doesn't happen very often. I don't put much stock, actually, in official learning, academic learning, personally. I'm not saying it's not good, and I'm not saying it doesn't get people to where they want to get to, but for me, it's never, ever been useful.
Well, see, I take this back a little bit because what you're talking about is more or less applied learning education with the things you get from university, etc. In my case, I know for a fact, and this is where I have to big up Ethercall. Ethercall recently passed an exam that he'd studied hard for I believe it was a certification of some kind. So in the case of should you have to take exams to prove your knowledge about a topic? So for example, if you want to get yourself involved in the AWS world and you want to become knowledgeable, there are so many certifications and exams in the AWS world that it is enough to make someone go mad.
Every
The
world.
scary part is part of that exam is how do you market to people the products of Amazon? Because good old AWS. However, here's the thing for me. I took a lot of exams. I was MCP. I had a mouse. I got a mouse because I just thought the name was cute and I was bored. So I got myself a mouse, A plus, Net plus, like all of the things that go with it. I even looked at going after my CISSP and some of the other things, and like this, anything involving security. I was like, oh, I need to get involved and get all of the certification. Like, I think in a way there is a time and a place for it. But I have a torn feeling on it. There are a lot of paper warriors in this world.
Yes. And there's also a lot of con jobs out there as well in terms of education. Not necessarily official education like university and college. I'm talking about courses.
Oh my God. Gordon has said exactly what I was going to say. Certs can be good for building your own confidence.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the case. Every single certification that I have ever seen is designed by a very specific body with a very specific intent, and it is designed to be tested a very specific way. And if you can learn, just like in pub quizzes or in, all the different quizzes that you see on television, if you can learn the format and you can learn the methodology behind how things work, the lists to study, that does not mean you understand a damn thing that you have just tested and passed for. And that is what I think gets to me. I worked with somebody who had their A+. I say had because to me, all they did was cram test and pass. But when presented with a situation where we had to fix a actual hard drive and a PC, and they did not know how to take apart a PC, I was livid. We have paper warriors and we have practical warriors. To me, practical warriors are people who dig in and get going.
There's nothing wrong with a combination of both. I think that official piece of paper is what society deems is necessary in certain circumstances. Now, if you're a doctor or a medical professional... Sorry?
I think in the IT world, HR people tend to use it as a cop-out to try to oh, you don't have this particular certification for Cisco and we need people for Cisco. And you're sort of going, but I have worked on Cisco products since I was on my father's knee. It's like...
Now, our community have done a great job of diverting us today from the actual topic that we're supposed to be talking about. And you, of all people, Josey, are not stopping us and not cracking the whip. So can we at least cover that? Because there's a great conversation going on in chat, but we can't...
There really is.
We really do have a topic to cover today because this is specifically about trying to be about freelance. Now, this is relevant. This is one of the things that we can definitely cover, and I think maybe that could even be a first episode that we'll do, talking about...
Well, we do talk about self-assessment. In our list, we actually include things like self-assessment, certifications, training. Like, we include that in this gigantic, gorgeous list. So why don't you start?
So yeah, I mean, what we're going to try and do here is we're going to cover... should we just read out some of the things that we've written down?
Yes.
We're going to cover things like working at home, pros and cons of working at home. Not all the time. For example, I sometimes work in an office, but I prefer to work at home. But it's different for everybody. Everybody's got a story about that person who works at home in inverted commas that doesn't actually do any work. Whereas as a self-employed person, you have to do that. You have to make sure that you set time aside. People overwork at home, like Josey sometimes, for example. I tend to have quite a good schedule these days, and although I might not do a 7-hour block at once, I then do...
You budget your time well.
Yeah, I mean, I this morning, for example, I did 6:30 till 9 o'clock, and then I had an hour off because I needed to go to the doctors for something, and and then I worked. But I make sure I've got a strict. I block my time out and make sure that I log it all internally for my own use, not client timesheets, and then make sure that I do the right hours for the day. Other things that we want to cover.
Yes, some of the other things that we're going to be covering are things that are going to be somewhat specific to the UK, like the I-35 fiasco. Chris has, oh boy, this is a bee-bonnet topic for him, but I'm going to just mention that's a thing.
Yep.
It'll make sense to people when we get into it. But then we'll also be looking at things like contracts.
How to write a contract.
How to write a contract, like how to do contracts. Should a contract involve certain things? Should it not? Now, granted, anytime you get involved with contracts, number one rule, get a bloody lawyer involved, and one who actually specializes in it.
Now, I've got other opinions on that. We'll get into that.
Well, you can already see that Chris and I are gearing up for arguing about freelancing. It's going to be great.
Healthy debate, not arguing. Healthy debate.
Okay, we will. Harvard calls it progressive conflict, I believe, or something like that. Anyway, but yes, we'll look at things like the differences between doing hourly and retainership, about how to ensure that your contracts include the right milestones and everything else that goes with
how to
that.
Put a maintenance contract together, how to work to a statement of work, for example, and how to make sure that your clients are happy with what you've got. Again, lots of clients that I work with, they couldn't care less about a statement of work, and they're quite happy to pay me for months on end on a daily rate.
I prefer working on retainer. I love retainers.
Whereas I haven't got a single client who works on retainer, and I keep trying to get them to give me a retainer, but none of them are that interested.
It's because you're not doing the type of work that I do.
That's the thing, and these are the subjects. These are the things we want to get into.
These are the things we will rip apart. Next.
So yes, accounting as well. Now this is the boring stuff, but this is the stuff that can apply to more than just freelancing in the IT industry. Now, accounting, to me, a lot of people don't prioritize it because they've got too much work to do. And, we've got, unfortunately, administration, the administrative side of a business is early on quite a burden. Now, I've got to a point now, I actually employ my wife to do a lot of my day-to-day admin, invoicing, filling in timesheets, the kind of stuff that kind of distracts me from the work I do. However, I've got to a point now in my career, I don't actually need my wife that much to do that much, if you know what I mean. I actually give her plenty of other tasks to do as well, just to kind of make sure that I'm not getting waylaid with things. But there isn't that much because I'm so far into my business, But there's so much in accounting. There's things like how to make sure that you stay legitimate, make sure you're not missing things, how to do expenses, how to file returns.
Oh, we forgot something on our list.
How to find a good accountant.
not just, oh my God, don't even get me started on accountancy stories, but how do you chase the person who's not paying you?
Yes, add it to the list.
Let me add this to the list.
And all kinds of other financials as well, not just the accounting side of things, the administrative side of things, but also how to do things like how to set your rate with your clients, how to charge your clients, because some people don't necessarily... I work on day rates a lot of the time, but I've also worked on things like milestone payments based on a statement of work. So I've set up a list of things, I've agreed a list of requirements with a client, I've agreed what I'm going to deliver by what dates, under what circumstances, and then I've received maybe a minimal day rate until I've actually delivered, and then I get a bulk payment at the end. And that usually works out better in the long run, because I have never not delivered. So I actually, because of this payment at the end, there's usually more than a normal day rate in that, because they give you an additional bonus for that,
Yeah. And that's the thing. Bonuses is a thing that can actually be, there's a whole bunch behind the financial side. Now, obviously, the moment you start getting into financials, we kind of mentioned a little bit, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into legals. So what the hell is GDPR and does it really impact me? How do you handle security? I am actually insured. My company is insured for things that can happen on the web.
I legally have to be insured for the
I
people
have
that I
to be
work for.
insured. That's the thing. I have to have my proof of insurance, and it's got to be part of that. And then things like NDAs, like say a client reaches out to you and starts kind of spewing information, and then you're like, cool, let's work together. And they're like, yeah, by the way, you need to sign an NDA. Or like there's so many things behind that. For example, like one of the things Chris does is when he approaches a new client is he doesn't sit there and go, you're here to interview me. He goes, I have a portfolio. Allow me to share with you what it is I have accomplished, the projects that I have done. However, I don't think he actually turns around and says, I've done this exact specific thing for this specific company. And there's a reason for it, but there should be a way for you to showcase your work and still keep NDAs that you may have signed, and we'll get into that.
As I said, there's an interesting thing I do in interviews, which not many contractors do. Contractors specifically. Now, if you're selling yourself to a business, it's different. But as a contractor, you usually go in under the guise of an interview for a job placement. That's just the way that the industry works. However, I make sure that I interview the client as well. That's a key thing for me. I have to make sure that the client is suitable and they're going to give me the work in the format that I deem is necessary. And this is where the IR35 thing comes in as well. So much legislation around my industry. It's ridiculous.
Yes, it gets really, really crazy. I will also throw out, there are going to be things like, how do you fire a client?
And how do you retain a client?
And how do you retain your clients? What's inbound and outbound processes and workflows?
Could I ask, right, Tultepe, he's put a little smiley face after this question. What is that GDPR? Is he trolling us?
If you read his next statement, he is again being a cheeky monkey.
Okay.
Now, I take him. He's being a cheeky moose because he is from Norway, so therefore he is a moose.
Okay. Does GDPR affect Norway?
Norway is not inside the European Union, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong about this, because right. So it does affect them. But there is a country here that is not affected by it. I just can't bloody remember which one it is, because it wasn't important to me when I was working through some of the stuff that I had to do for my company. But yeah.
So yeah, we're also going to be looking at things like marketing, how to keep yourself abreast, how to get new business. I mean, I need some help here, to be fair. I struggle on my side of things to get new business, other than going through agencies, other than getting job interviews and going there and then selling myself. I've managed quite successfully, at least for the last 5 years anyway, to go into a job interview and sell myself rather than going into a job interview and worry about getting the job, if you know what I mean. So I sell myself and I tell them what I can do, what services I provide, and then they explain to me what the project is. If they don't have a project and they're just filling a role for a certain amount of time, I'm usually up and out of there, because it's not the kind of thing I like doing.
That's not the thing that you like to do. Yeah.
No, but there's plenty of contractors who do like doing that.
But see, there's a give and take. When you're being interviewed, you're interviewing them, and I think a lot of people forget that. Even if you're just looking for a job and you're not trying to do contracting or self-employment or freelancing or anything else like that, don't forget, when you go to do an interview, you have the right to interview the company as well. So, but yes, we'll also look at what happens if you're working on a project and you need to bring in a subcontractor. Well, what is subcontractor? What is this stuff? How do you make this work? How do you handle the actual responsibilities, the deliverables, the legals? Like, there's a whole section behind subcontracting alone.
Yeah, and again, some clients don't actually, and some contracts don't actually allow you to subcontract. A lot of my clients will not allow it. And I've even had a old client come back to me very recently asking if I can manage a project for them. Previously, I just got involved in a project, did some work for them, development work, and deployed it. And I did everything, but I still just did the development side of things. Now they've come back to me and said, well, can you actually come in and can you get your resources and can you speak to your network and get some additional resource for us and get people in to help with the project and manage it, which is kind of a managed service. It's not just a It's not just
like
a
they're
contract.
asking you to be HR.
Well, no. They're asking me to manage the technical projects and get the resources for it. So HR,
They said tap your resources. That to me means you should be in HR and out there trying to sell yourself to everybody.
It's
Tom,
officially
Dick, and Harry
termed
on
as a
LinkedIn.
it's officially termed as a managed services company when you're doing that kind of thing, which is kind of what you do, Josey, kind of, but you're not under the MSC legislation. Anyway, so they've come back to me and done this, but the problem is the agent that I went through, and I asked them when I first went for the first contract if they could remove the subcontracting restriction from the. No, we can't do that. You're not allowed to subcontract. So the official line is you cannot subcontract. So I've went back to them and I've said to them, well, if you want them, the agency needs to change it. Your legal department need to agree on it. This is a big global organization, tiny little project, but massive global company with lots and lots of arms and lots of. So it's kind of, what do we do about this? More legal stuff.
More legal stuff, yes. And of course, we'll talk about the nitty-gritty about clients themselves. And this is basically everything we've just been saying, but we're actually going to throw in a little bit of marketing, a little bit of advice and tips and tricks and questions and frustrations and things involving marketing. Speaking of, you saw the change to LinkedIn today. My brain is just like, what? I don't really want to log in.
I logged on. I can't have been logged in to LinkedIn. I can't have logged in since I formatted my computer a few weeks ago. Went on. The first page was like a mobile. It looked like a mobile website with a search bar across the top and a little search icon, and it just looked like it had been hacked. That was it. There was nothing else on the page. It was white everywhere else. And I clicked the X on the top, made sure the link wasn't going to take me anywhere else, but clicked the link, the X on the top, and then it showed this brand new LinkedIn front page. And I was like, what's going on here? I must have been logged onto the mobile site. It must have been a bug with it or something. But then again, I do have it in portrait view, not quite full screen, so still shouldn't have detected it as mobile.
That depends on media queries and the things that you but that's a whole nother topic type of a thing. We'll also be discussing things like your working patterns and your workflow.
Yeah, working long hours, going overtime, doing, should we be charging for the hours or should we be charging for our time or our expertise or as a project or fixed price work, or
we'll even discuss how to charge and price yourself.
Yeah. And again,
it's a hard topic.
All of this is so subjective, and I actually weirdly, I actually really like this side of my job. I like the self-employedness. I like that side of things.
I'd hope so.
Well, it's not just. I'm a developer and I enjoy developing, and I do all kinds of things. But I enjoy the business side of things. I like building a business, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. And I believe that you shouldn't contract if you don't at least appreciate that you have to do a little bit of business. You have to treat your clients like clients, not as your boss. Even though your client is your boss.
There's a whole thing about the actual relationships and the sort of communication and how friendly one can be versus not be kind of a deal. And we're now adding more fantastic things to this. But yes, other things that we'll be digging into are freelancing tools. Everything from how to do remote work to how to handle issue management to just helping your workflow and your accounting tools work free. Like any tool at all, if it's used, we'll be going into it.
And how much is too much as well.
Oh my God,
as an individual,
yes.
I can go crazy with my automation. I worked with so many tools over the years. I've worked with entire ALM systems, application lifecycle management systems, that like TFS, that have got boards, issue boards. They've got source control built into them. They've got release management systems. They've got CI/CD pipelines. All of that built into one big system. Is that too much for what you're working with? Is it appropriate? I don't work with a single ALM tool. The last 3 clients I've worked for, I've worked with GitLab, GitHub, Bitbucket, internal Bitbucket, SVN, Jenkins, TeamCity, Visual, or what do they call it now? Azure DevOps, which is Visual Studio Online, Team Services Online, or whatever Microsoft's offering.
The point is, tools. There are so many of them. It's insane.
But how far do we go with it? I
just got introduced to Kanban flow. Like, I know Kanban, I get it, but I got introduced to this app like Kanban flow, and I'm like, okay, so that's yet another tool to add to my arsenal, but it can get overwhelming. And sometimes, especially if you are coming in as a freelancer contractor, you get no say. And
yes, and no.
Sometimes you get no say.
You gotta just ignore it all.
Okay, we'll get into that in... Oh, this is going to be a fun series. Oh, my goodness. Holy cow. But yes, we will look at everything from payments, how to collect them, how to issue them,
how to make sure you get paid.
Cash. Yeah, to make certain you get paid. Hello, I am a Nigerian princess. I have a fantastic amount of money saved aside. Please send Western Union. I mean, goodness gracious.
Go for a few of them. Why not? Millions, few million guacamoles or whatever they send.
We are not doing 419 scams here. I do not approve of this. And yes, that is the actual technical term for those types of scams. They're 419s. And then, of course, we'll look at time management in its own right. Now, here's the thing, Chris. You and I are sitting here chatting, and I am almost biting at the bit, wanting to respond to some of these fantastic questions that are coming in about things.
But you know what? We're nearly at the end of the show.
I know.
And that's good, because I didn't think we would get through that entire list at a high level, because I know how bad we are at going off on one. But... We can now.
We will add more as we think of it, because all it takes is something happening for one of us to just be like, "That needs to be on the list." Pound, pound, pound. You know.
So there was something Ethrical mentioned earlier. So let's respond to a few of the questions. Ethrical mentioned right at the beginning. Let me read it out exactly. So this was about the question to do with education, whether or not you should have a qualification to back up your claim. And he said that, what about somebody who's only been in the IT field for 2 to 4 years and wants to go freelancing? Would a qualification help them? These days, absolutely yes. Now, we had someone on a few weeks ago. The show was a little bit scattered. It wasn't particularly focused, but it was actually some good points that were raised, because he was quite young. He said that he's really struggling to get into the IT world these days. He's at university and he's trying to get in. He is going to have a qualification, but he's still going to struggle to get a job. There's so many jobs out there. For someone like me, who's got 22 years experience or something doing what I've done, I can literally turn up to any job, and if I really wanted to, I could blag my way into it. As I said, I don't blag my way. I tell them exactly what I can and can't do, and they usually give me a job that's appropriate. Most of the time, when I go for a developer role, I usually end up with a lead developer or a senior developer or a team leader or a solution architect role. You know, it just it entirely depends on what they have in line, and that is how I market myself. I get in there first. But when you're young and you don't have any experience whatsoever, you don't have that ability. You can lie, but they're going to know that you're lying about it.
See, this is the thing. There's a whole nother side to the interview technique that I think is being neglected here. If you are like someone who has, say, 2 to 4 years and you really want to do something freelance, first off, there's nothing stopping you from making a hobby to start. Okay? Prove to yourself in a proof of concept that you can put the time, the dedication in to do whatever it is, start to finish your particular thing that you want to go into. Then have that as a part of your portfolio in your interview process. Explain your reasoning, show your thought processes. There's a reason why a lot of universities force people to actually develop an application as part of their capstones or part of their thesis or things like that.
And then they force people to do extracurricular activity, not just a a project something different.
IEEE ACM right here. But, you know, it's also the other side of the coin is sometimes, even if you have all the qualifications under your belt and all the experience under your belt, you still have to do a tech test.
Yeah, again,
Sometimes
depending on
that
the
is
company,
part of the
most of the time,
process.
most of the time they want you to do some kind of technical test. And if you can't do it, and a lot of people can't do it, even experienced people can't do the tech tests, sorry, you're probably not going to get the job, because there'll be somebody who can.
Well, see, I have a fantastic set of circumstances and stories about a tech test and how an individual can shine in a tech test by showing a certain part of their personality. And I'll save that for the show when we talk about that. But in all honesty, there are so many ways to be tested for your skill set. It's how, when I'm talking to somebody, if they go into a particular topic, I don't know why this is, but I seem to run across people on occasion who feel this need to pour onto my shoulders the fact that they have knowledge about a specific subject. And I will let them talk and dig a hole, because it is obvious they only know how to answer questions on a test. They're a proper paper warrior. And then when they're finished, I will throw a curveball at them. And I'll say, well, what about this, though? Because in this particular scenario, there's been actual proven things with this. And how does this work? And it's not that I'm trying to prove them wrong. It's I want them to see that they might want to look deeper. I know some people who paid fortunes and all they did was get MCSE after certification, after CISSP. And if you ask them to sit down and actually do a part of the work, they have no experience. This is why projects, self-projects and harpies is so important. Because even if you're just starting out,
well,
you have something to show.
See, projects can only starting projects can only get you so far. Now, there is a brilliant open source community out there if you specifically want to get into development.
Yes.
But when it comes to things like, I mean, as a freelancer, it really does depend on what kind of jobs you're taking. I couldn't take this a solution architect role in a multi global company, you know, that expects a certain level of expertise and knowledge before, you know, I couldn't get involved with the phone calls that I have to do every day with these big players in the world, because I just wouldn't have the knowledge to back up the conversations I need to have in order to get to the solution. But if you're coming in as a freelancer with 2 to 4 years, I would always say, just keep digging away at the smaller jobs. It's simple as that. You know, you're never going to be able to get the big jobs, the big paying jobs, until you've got the experience for it. And it doesn't matter how good you are and how many qualifications you've got.
There's also the whole concept behind, especially here in the United Kingdom, there is a thing of, so we've had this job on our books for the past 6 months. We can't find anyone internally to fill it. We can't find anyone externally to fill it. And we're going to bring a contractor in to do it instead, which is why we're turning to you. The downside, this is only 6 months, and you have to go to Abu Dhabi.
Abu Dhabi.
Apparently I'm turning it French. But you have to go there for 6 months. Literally pick up, move. We'll relocate you. You have to be there physically for 6 months. And jobs like that come up because people don't want to do the travel or the moving. And it could be something as simple as, we need you to sit there and rewrite our documentation for the help support desk. There are some really strange things out there. And all it takes is just a little bit of persistence, a little bit of time, and knowing what you will and will not do. That needs to go on our list.
That is on our list. Saying no to clients. And it is a very important part of our...
That's different. You can say no to clients all you want, but if you don't know what your specific limits are, like, for example, I am happy to do an 8-month contract if I am on UK soil. Mm-hmm. If you want me to leave UK soil, minimum 1-year contract.
I only learned
I
my
have made
limit.
Chris
Sorry,
speechless.
I was responding to Tultepe in chat. He just said, "You can say no," and I said he can't say no. He's probably a permanent employee, I imagine, so he can't say no. He can suggest other things to do, maybe, but maybe not say
Wink,
no.
wink, nudge, nudge. Say no more.
Yeah. I learned the hard way. I know now that I do not like working away from home. I've done a few contracts abroad. I've done a few contracts just down south. I've done a few contracts in the Midlands. I can tell you that the Midlands is worse than any of the places that I've been in terms of mental health. It's
Wow.
what an awful place to work. But I'm sure that's not the case for everywhere, but where I worked, it wasn't a particularly nice place. But I do not like being away from my home life. It's simple as that. So I look specifically, and I limit everything like my rate, the work that I can and can't do, the type of contracts that I take on, the type of projects that I take on, and the type of people and clients that I'll work with, because I limit myself to normally to remote work and going on site maybe for a week at the beginning of the contract and then moving to every now and again. I mean, luckily a lot of my clients understand that I'm miles away. They don't need me in the office. I'm doing the work. I'm delivering what they want me to do.
The
And
world
it's okay.
has opened up to allow, especially those in the IT industry, some interesting potentials in the freelance world. It's amazing.
It's still got a long way to go in terms of remote work, though. Real long way.
Yes.
There's a lot of the work that I could do remotely. People still will not let you do it remotely because they don't believe that you can be a member of a team or part of or be a team player when you're working remotely.
And it's interesting you say that because every single one of my clients is remote.
Yes.
And it's a different thing in my particular industry because in the stuff than the people and the clients and things that I work with, me being in their face would actually be more damaging than me being at a distance. It's not a matter of teamwork anymore. It's a completely different philosophy. And yet, there are going to be people, and it can be as simple as you just got that HR person on the wrong day and they got a bee in their bonnet. They just came back from some HR seminar where they have learned this new thing and they're going to prove to everybody that the HR seminar was worth paying for that trip to Florida in the middle of summer and the cruise that they took. You're going to get those situations. And these are things we'll be discussing. Absolutely.
I think it's time for an RTFM.
Oh, hey, I agree.
And I think
However,
it's Josey's turn.
I'll definitely go first. But I want to comment on El Gordino, who says, in my humble opinion, remote teams work well. All of the team is work well when all the team is remote. When it's a hybrid on-site remote, it's hard work. And I can see that.
I would agree with that.
And I would agree with that.
It's even more difficult when you are an external contractor that is entirely independent, doing completely siloed work. And this is my current one of my current contracts, completely independent, and you just get ignored because everybody else is on site and everybody else is working on project work, whereas I'm looking at future work and I'm putting designs together for potential work that the people who are currently working on projects will be doing in the future. They couldn't care less about that because their remit right now is do this work because this is where the money's coming from. It's not their fault. But you just kind of get forgotten about a lot of the time. But is that my fault for not being more receptive to being on site?
This is a big discussion, and this is what a small preview of what you can expect from the series of version 11.x.
Don't expect answers.
Not true. Not true. But yes, RTFM. RTFM is in the moment in the show where we get a chance to rant, rave, throw chairs. In my particular case, I'm playing with Space Putty. For those of you who are not watching and listening to us on our podcast, I went to the Science Museum a few years ago and I got Space Putty. And I'm just sitting here digging into it because I have a certain level of frustration with this story.
Jodo. Do you watch Taskmaster?
No.
Oh, it's a show on Dave, the TV show, on last night's
Dave,
episode.
the repeat channel.
Last night, one of the contestants created Jodo. It just looks just exactly like that.
Oh, this is Science putty, for those who are interested in science putty. But anyway, my story. So here's the deal. I have a client that I am subcontracted to do some work for. And one of these clients, I think, suffers from a case of passive aggressivity. Or the inability to say what is actually on their mind, or once they have said what is on their mind, being absolutely and utterly unrealistic and unreasonable about modifying or changing how they see things. It's almost like as soon as they've said it, it is now stone. And I'm cool with it because I don't have to do direct facing things. I only have to do some side stuff. And I've had a feeling lately that they're looking at trying to migrate away from the particular client that I am subcontracted to leave the company, to do their own thing, find their own thing or whatever, because they've not been very responsive to some of their emails and stuff. But this past week, I received a security alert. Now, fans of this show should know I'm a bit of a bitch when it comes to security. But the security alert was for the installation of a GoDaddy platform plugin on a site that I host and run. And it was done with the admin account I did not want to create many moons ago. So I got a security notification that something had happened. I went and I checked and I saw what had happened, and I immediately saw red. So I do what I'm supposed to do. I contact them and go, this is a security alert. Did you set this up or not? Because if you did not, I need to implement a full lockdown. If you did set this up, please tell me that this is an approved change.
No response.
Silence for a half hour until I contacted, the person who I contract or subcontract through, and they reached out to them by text right as an email came in from them. They're like, this is the best part. It's like, that was my account, but it wasn't me who did it.
Sharing admin passwords. Oh.
I am working with this other agency for something. I'm including them in this email. Can you please advise? The person gets back to me. Oh, we were just testing something to see if it would work. On a fucking prod? The fuck? Sharing passwords? The fuck? Woosa. Woosa. Woosa.
Too much like hard work to ask you for a secondary account to log in. Did they have a test instance they could have done it on?
Yes.
Okay, right.
All I am going to say is they are this close to being fired by me.
Ooh, that bad, eh?
Yep.
Well.
I feel better having released that into the negative space of the world. I will breathe in darkness, let out light. Breathe in darkness.
My RTFM.
You have one?
I do have an RTFM. I have whinged, I think, a few times on the podcast and definitely in our Discord channel about my shared hosting provider. I've been slowly migrating things off my shared hosting provider for a number of weeks because I just don't have it in me to do it all at once. There's so many little things you need to do to migrate websites and email and DNS and everything else. So anyway, I've done it. All my DNS is now transferred to another provider, so I'm quite happy with that. I've still got IPs pointing to the shared hosting provider. All of my websites except the two websites that need IIS, that's Internet Information Services, which is a Microsoft web server. They need that to run.
Apache or Nginx, for those of you who are curious.
So all of my other ones have been moved onto Nginx within Docker containers on my virtual host. which is wonderful. Absolutely love this setup, this new setup I've got going. And also, email has been migrated to. I've started to use Office 365 for my main business email, which I cannot sing the praises of. As much as I am trying to avoid the big players in the world these days, like Microsoft and Google, because of data, privacy, things like that. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but I'm getting a little bit paranoid about the amount of tracking and data intrusions and breaches and things like that are going on.
Especially now that Google's going to be preventing extensions that do full ad blocking.
Yeah.
On Chrome. For those of you who are curious about this, I put a link in our Discord. Well, go to our Discord.
I've moved from Chrome. Anyway, I've moved away from Chrome. I've moved on to Firefox now, which I don't like. To be fair, I'm not a big fan. I much prefer Chrome, but I'm
Have you looked at Opera?
I have, but anyway, different topic.
Okay.
So, anyway, I've moved everything. So we've now got our DNI email is on Google Mail. My main email's on Office 365, and I've got my other domains that I only had forwarding addresses anyway. Just set up an Office 365 as additional domains. All of that's set up. Great, wonderful. Got an email today. I'm going on holiday next week, by the way, and I got an email today from my hosting provider saying, we're migrating your server next week. Here's the new IP address, right? I haven't got a date yet. They've got a date for some of the servers, but not this existing server. And I don't know if next week I'm going to have a week of downtime for these two websites. Only one of them's really important. The other one is for my old game studio, which is dormant at the moment. The other one's for my main business. So I don't get too many inquiries, but I might get an inquiry while I'm away, and that's the point, isn't it? So it's just the amount of this is why I'm trying to move away from shared hosting providers, because they just don't give you enough info. You don't pay a lot of money for it, and that's reflected in the service that you get from them and the migration. And this is the same with GoDaddy, FreeServe, Ioni, or whatever, one-on-one, or whatever they call them. Anybody who does anything like this, you pay a minimal price, you get tons of stuff built into it, you get a certain amount of flexibility, but after that flexibility ends, the support is usually quite limited. So I'm currently have no idea if my websites are going to be up next week. So that's my RTFM. I'm not quite as annoyed as Josey is, but
yeah. And by the way, I got a little nudge from one of our viewers. I do believe, that it says to be announced for our YouTube channel on our stream below your name.
It does.
And I want to remind people, we can remove that TBA when you guys go and subscribe. As soon as we have enough to get a actual domain that isn't some random hash that needs to be sort of convolutedly migrated. And yes, we can use things like, Bitly and stuff to make things short, but we don't want to. We want to have a gosh darn URL for our YouTube. Go follow us and subscribe on YouTube, and then you can forget about us. But we'll get that all fixed. And the clicking. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry, mechanical keyboard. Yes, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/channel/UCVMK.
Oh, no.
See, that's why we don't have, that's why we need people to subscribe, so we can change that to /DNI stream.
Yes. And now we're at the end of our show. Massive, holy cow. Just like brain dead thank you from me, because I have had a long day. But Envina, Tultepe, Ethrical, Gordino, Aussie, Farrad, I know you're around there somewhere. You're like hiding, a little thing you, and all the stuff that goes with it. But yes, a massive thank you to all of us for joining in. If you have questions you have that we haven't answered, and they involve development, they involve freelancing, there's a fantastic way you can get those questions to us so we can actually incorporate them in our show notes and actually include them without feeling guilty. And that's go to www.dnistream.live. And you can find links to all of our past podcasts. You can find links to our Discord channel. Come in, listen to us rant and rave. It can be a fantastic amount of fun. Also, you can find links to our YouTube channel there, so you don't have to worry about strange hashes, and you can do what, Chris?
Well, you've just taken my bit, so it doesn't matter.
Oh,
Doesn't matter what I've got to say, does it?
I paused. You could just go. Like,
no, but however,
adapt.
we because I did some migrations this week, the website wasn't up. Well, the contact form wasn't working for a few days, but it is now working. So please, in fact, if anybody in the chat right now could go onto our website and just drop us a quick little message just to test that it's coming from external sources, because we've tested it from a few emails. It seems to be working fine. We're getting the forward in. We've changed the email and the hosting this week and the SMTP server and everything else.
API, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
It's all working now. But if somebody could just go on the website and just send us a message, that'd be brilliant. And you can get the source code for our website as well, which has had some commits this week with all these new SMTP changes. We now have SSL-enabled SMTP sending directly via the website rather than via a proxied Docker container, which it was using before. So I've ripped all the complicated stuff out and replaced it with some other code. Go to github.com/documentation not included, and you can also submit issues. They will now pop up in our Discord channel as well. Josey set that up this week.
Webhooks are so sexy.
Yeah, we're getting everything sorted slowly.
We'll get there someday. But yes, we all hope all to see you next week, possibly. It's up in the air as to what's going to happen next week. Patrick is flying over the Atlantic, I think, right now. And I may not be able to make the show. Chris is on vacation.
Holiday. Don't do vacation. I don't even know what that is.
Same difference. One's American, one's British. One's posh, one's not.
I said vacation's posh. Vacation's the posh way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Fair enough.
Yeah, it is. No, I have no idea. But yes, we hope to see you guys when we next stream. If you follow us on our Twitter and everything else that goes with it, you'll get a good idea as to when our next show will be, whether we're going to do a rerun next week or whether we're going to actually have a bit of a show, or we might not do anything at all. I don't know.
If you do a show, it will be the first one without me. The first one ever.
I think that's why I'm a little hesitant to actually do a show, because you are the only member of our team who has been 100% consistently here since we started D&I. I've been sick. I've taken vacation. I am the oddball. So to me, you are the rock, the foundation upon which our stream is built.
I don't feel guilty, by the way. If you're trying to make me feel guilty, I don't have
Actually,
that
what
capacity.
I'm trying to do is tell you how awesome you are and how much I appreciate you. But the fact that you have taken that to imply some form of manipulation on my part, of all people, thanks.
I'm only joking, Josey.
I love Chris. I have so much fun doing these with you. Anyway, yes, we'll hope to see you guys soon. Chat with you all. Such big love to absolutely every one of you, and we'll see you all very soon.
See you later, people.
Bye-bye.
Bye.